O-line on three. O-line on three. 1, 2, 3. O-line.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis, Aaron Freeman, and Tori McElhaney. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. The Atlanta Football Party is also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So what kept the Panthers in the game Sunday and what shut them down late we'll discuss, and what is this team's identity? We'll weigh in on that too. But first, let's talk about how the Dirty Birds offense can get it done however they want to. So Tori, the Falcons had 509 passing yards in the win over the Bucs last week. Conversely, this week, they gained nearly 200 yards on the ground. And in Sunday's post-game presser, Kirk Cousins said, and I think this was something that you tweeted out, quote, "You pass the ball to score, you run the ball to win." So isn't it good to see this Falcons offense just making opposing defenses kind of pick their poison in trying to stop them, and for you to be able to see that variety that we thought we'd see at this point in the season?
Yeah, I do. I think it was Raheem Morris who said that what the last 2 weeks have showed everyone is that the Falcons can win games in multiple different styles of play. And I
Yes.
do think that there is an element of truth to that. You know, the Bucks were very obviously taking the run away. There were a lot of loaded boxes, and that was something that they were willing to sell out to stop the run. And so the Falcons were like, okay, you're going to give us 15 yards downfield with Drake London. We'll take that every time. Then against the Panthers, they're like, well, Kirk Cousins is coming off of a 509-yard passing performance. Maybe let's not completely sell out to stop the run. And the Falcons are able to do kind of enact their will in the run game a little bit, especially in that second half. So I think all of that should bode well for where the Falcons find themselves in a few weeks as well, because I think that there's this layer of almost like, I think they needed to click in these different areas and different times to kind of show themselves that they could do it. And that I think people forget sometimes, and this is something I was talking to Charlie Warner about in the locker room post game. He was like, we're figuring it out, but it's nice to win while we're figuring it out. And it's nice to put up 74 points while we're figuring it out. And I think that shouldn't be lost in the sauce of everything that's gone on the last couple weeks, is that like you're actively seeing an offensive coordinator figure out his offense and the offense figure out their offensive coordinator. And that should only be a good thing as this team moves forward, as they do start to figure out what their offensive identity is. And I think honestly against the Panthers, like that's getting Drake London and Kyle Pitts involved and having Bijan Robinson and Tyler Allgeier average over 5 yards a carry. I mean, I think that game is what they would like to look like. That's what they would want to be. So to answer your question, I think this is a good building block these last 2 weeks for what could come with this offense.
Yeah, and so many things in there that you said, Tori. You mentioned the scoring, and you really haven't seen that kind of back-to-back scoring since 2016. And then you look at the fact that you have two running backs that were darn near 100-yard running backs in that game. Or actually, I'm sorry, Bijan Robinson was darn near at 100 yards. This was actually Tyler Allgeier's third 100-yard game in his career. So again, you even have two backs that can get you the triple digits on the ground. And then, like you said as well, this team can start off hot and score early, like we saw a little bit of yesterday, but they can also come from behind because they have the ability to do that. So it's almost like the definition of multiplicity of ways that they can score and ways that they can win has so many different layers to it. And I think, again, what we saw yesterday, to your point, Tori and Jarvis, is what you wanted to see in those first 4 weeks. And you saw it building, and now you've seen it the last 2 weeks, and it gives you some optimism that you'll continue to see that throughout the rest of the season.
And the one thing that, when you come to wanting to establish yourself in the run game is the fact that everybody can get involved in that. And it takes everyone to get involved in order for you to have those chunk plays and to average 6 and 7 yards or 5 or 6 yards a carry. That takes everybody else getting involved, not just the offensive line. And for example, like Rayward McLeod just motioned within the line of scrimmage, right? Like almost half motion, they're snapping the ball. He's running up in the line trying to find somebody to go block. And he chips the guy. And then Bijan Robinson able to cut right off his butt and get 3 or 4 more yards. Or if it's Drake London sealing the inside of the block on one particular play where Tyler Allgeier is like third, and I think it was 2nd and 1, and Tyler Allgeier able to put his foot in the ground, boom, cut right off of Drake London's butt and get 2 yards for a first down. I think that to be able to watch each and every guy, like wide receivers, Charlie Warner, he gets my big man award for this game because this dude absolutely mauling folks. I'm talking about double team slipping with Caleb McGarry up, and I'm talking about getting his hands on multiple guys within one play. You talking about a guy not only getting his hands on someone on the first level, boom, getting up to the next level, boom, knocking that guy off so you're running back and get some more yards. It was just a beautiful thing to watch. This coming into this game, this is what Aaron and I we talked about on Locked On Falcons. I want to see this offensive line dominate because Carolina was not a good team against the run. You take advantage of that. That's what our game plan is. Whatever you sorry at, that's what we're going to do. And they were able to do that to the tune of 200 yards rushing, almost 200 yards rushing as a team. So I think this is one of those games where we expected for it to look a certain way, and it actually did. And for the Falcons, it is a great sign, excellent sign to see, especially against someone who they were supposed to be.
Yeah, and Aaron, it's not lost on me as well what Jarvis just said, which is, yes, oftentimes you hear teams and you hear coaches say, well, we just did what the defense gave us. Well, we know that's not to be lost because the last couple of years, the defense gave the Falcons offense a whole heck of a lot that they couldn't do anything with. So I do think that I don't want that to be lost in the fact that, the defense for the Buccaneers gave the Falcons something last week that they were able to take advantage of in the air. The Panthers gave them something that they could take advantage of on the ground this week, and they actually were able to do it. They had the personnel to actually get it done. And then going back to what Tori said, just the joy that Charlie Warner takes in, hey, I'm going to block and I'm going to do whatever I have to do, whether it's on special teams, whether it's on offense. Those are the types of things that you need to see to know that this team will be able to keep clicking as you've seen the last couple of weeks, and that it's only going to get better. And we also talked about those chunk plays yesterday, Free, in the postcast, and how important they were, especially in that final drive where it's like, okay, we just need to drive the nail in the coffin here.
Yeah. I think football basically is a game of matchups. And, when you can take advantage of matchups is the sign of being a good team. I know it sounds so basic to say, but it's so true. Where you often find people, doing that sort of football math of like team A beats team B and team B beats team C. So therefore team A should beat team C, and then team C winds up beating team A. And a lot of times it's because of the different matchups that different teams and defenses and offenses allow for other teams. And certain teams are able to take advantage of those matchups better than other teams. And so I think that's really what is very promising from the Falcons the last 2 weeks, where last week against Tampa Bay, like they were playing a lot of sort of cover 3 and they were leaving the seams wide open, and the Falcons were just going after those seam passes all day long to the accumulation of over 500 yards passing. And this week you went into this game being like the Falcons should be able to run the football against this Carolina team. And they absolutely were. And shout out to Clark Phillips. He was the main reason why the Falcons didn't get 200 yards rushing, because if he'd gotten that pick 6, we wouldn't have gotten 5 kneel downs at the end of the game that would have dropped their 200-yard rushing. But hey, we talked about that on the podcast. But the Falcons
about that, but okay.
Get in the zone, like them folks, man. Stop being smart.
But so I think with the Falcons being able to take advantage of these different matchups, it's a sign of, as you said, T, it's kind of this pick your poison that defenses have to deal with. And if you have a vulnerability, it makes you confident that the Falcons will be able to find ways to exploit that, whether that's through the air, whether that's through the ground and whatnot. So I think it's a big sign of the progress that you're talking about, that this offense in the past, the last couple of years, due to limitations on their roster, due to limitations maybe in their playbook and whatnot, or they could play a very specific style of football, and against certain teams that was effective, but against a lot of teams that was not very effective. Right. And this type of team doesn't necessarily have to be sort of put in that sort of box, and that's going to allow them to be able to blossom into the type of offense that is hopefully going to win them a lot of football games and be playing meaningful games in January. So I think these last 2 weeks are really very promising signs for the Falcons moving forward.
Yeah, and real quick, I just wanted you guys all to weigh in on something that I think is, I don't want to overlook it, because going 4 of 8 in the red zone is a powerful thing as well. I mean, how many times in the last couple of seasons, and even a little bit at the beginning of this season, were we frustrated that you would get into the red zone and then field goal, right? So I think that's something else as well that I just wanted you guys to weigh in on real quick, how about the success of this team in the red zone, being able to punch it in.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, being able to run the football, that's the most important thing when you get into the red zone, because like I said, windows get super tight. Even looking at that touchdown pass to Drake London, Kurt had to put some extra mustard on that one. It seemed like he put all he had into that pass to get that bad boy in there, because the windows are so tight. But when you're able to run the football like they were able to do against this Carolina football team, that's the thing that makes life a little bit easier, Robinson. So I feel like that's why you saw a little uptick as far as that success rate in the red zone, because you were able to run the football.
Yeah, I agree with Jarvis. I think you can usually tell who's good at running the football by their red zone success, because, as Jarvis said, things get a little condensed. Teams try to get a little stronger up against the run with different formations and different fronts and whatnot, because that is a vulnerability. Defenses are basically like, you're not going to be able to run the ball against us in the red zone. We're going to force you to throw the football, going back to what Jarvis said, where it's more advantageous for the defense in those situations due to the condensed field. And so if you can run the football effectively in the red zone, that usually is a sign that you are a good rushing team. And I think that's been a big part of the Falcons' recent red zone success.
I mean, it's the age-old saying, you got to score to win. And the Falcons weren't scoring in the first couple weeks of the season, and now they are, and they're winning games. So it doesn't take rocket science to be able to connect that punching the ball into the end zone is good. Not punching the ball into the end zone is bad. That is free analysis you can get anywhere. You're welcome. I will be here every Monday. I hope you enjoy.
A wise man once said, football is easy, coaches make it hard. So yeah, let's go.
There we go.
Yeah, turn get that bad boy off.
Both sides. So what kept the Panthers in the game yesterday, and what shut them down late, we'll discuss when we take it under further review. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Hims. So guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and you always want to be ready so you can perform in the bedroom. Well, Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay focused, stay energized, and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Now, your sex life is important, but we know your schedule's busy as well, and you don't really have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. But through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. And of course, every little boost counts, and it's time that you stop worrying so much about your performance, because as we know, the more you worry about it, the not so good it is. But if you get Hims, it'll help you feel confident knowing you can get where you need to be whenever you're in the mood. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. And remember, the products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See the website for details and important safety information. Subscription required, and price varies based on product and subscription plan. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is most precious commodity for all of us, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours when you can spend it improving yourself. History, econ, the great works of literature. Did you study these things in school? Maybe, maybe not. But even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed the basics. So Hillsdale College, our sponsor, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, which might be a good look, seeing as though we're less than a month away from a presidential election, introduction to free market economics, and a brand new documentary style course on Marxism, socialism, communism, etc. So go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked on to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked on to register. Hillsdale.edu/locked on. All right, Jarvis, the Falcons held the Panthers to just 3 points in the second half, but the Panthers were still down just one score early in the fourth quarter. So first off, what did you see that you felt kept the Panthers in that game Sunday?
The Falcons weren't able to start the run. They weren't able to make the plays when necessary. For example, zero. Lorenzo Carter, he wasn't able to put the quarterback on the ground when you have an opportunity to. When you don't rush the passer like you should be doing at this point, those are some of the situations that you have to take advantage of. You can't afford not to take advantage of plays like that. And then Matthew Judon being off sides and being able to, and then essentially, taking away an interception by George. You know what I'm saying? Like those are plays that can, against a good team, can get you beat. So yeah, I think that was the real issue for me. The Carolina Panthers were trying to give the ball game to them, and they weren't able to take advantage in those moments, and they didn't close out and really put this game away until late in the fourth. Midway through the fourth quarter. So when you think about it from that aspect of it, this is a bigger issue for me as far as what this defense is now and what it could be, because you have guys like Judon who's not performing. You have guys who's not finishing plays, and you're counting on guys like Lorenzo Carter to make plays when he's just a rotational guy. Just to keep it funky. That's just who he is as a player. So I think the real issue is that what kept this Panthers team in the game, they weren't able to take advantage, because there were a couple other throws too that could have been picked off if you were able to. Andy Dalton was trying to give you the game. And I think they weren't able to, finally close this game out until later on because of the plays that they did make, early on in that game, because there were plenty of opportunities for this team to do that. So, and they just didn't do that. So yeah, that's the big overall issue for me, is that you're not able to take advantage of plays that the team is giving you, and you're not able to rush the passer on a consistent basis as well. So when you combine those two things, that's what you get. Like, that's why you better be thankful that your offense is putting up the points that it's doing right now, because otherwise it would be a whole different. We'll be talking about a whole different story if they weren't.
Yeah, Tori, the Falcons found themselves in that fourth quarter with a 28-20 lead, and you're thinking to yourself, whoa, how this happened? So it was one of those questions where it's like, how did the Panthers stay in this game? But maybe more importantly, how did the Falcons defense allow them on some level to stay in this game for you?
Yeah, it's all going to go back to pass rush, and this is something that the guys, and Jarvis just talked about it. Like that's the crux right now. That's the difference for this defense. And I think that when you look at what Chuba Hubbard was able to do, running the ball just like straight up the gut and getting 15 yards to 20 yards or however many he had on those like 3 plays that he had. I don't know and this is what I was talking about on our own podcast. We're talking about the issues of pass rush. I don't know what to do to fix it, because they're blitzing at a high rate. The secondary is kind of playing to keep everything in front of them. And I don't know. I don't know what you do. I don't know if you go out and you get somebody, because you went out and you got Matthew Judon, and that was like the hope, is that like, okay, the expectation is that this pass rush is going to get after it early, and this is going to be, things are going to look different for pass rush in Atlanta, and that's just not the case right now. And the pressures aren't really there at all either. So I say all of that to say, like, I don't know, how do you fix it? Like, it's above my pay grade to fix it. And I'm thankful for that because I personally don't know how to fix it, but it needs to be fixed. And this team isn't going to reach, I think, the level that they could when you don't have a pass rush that's established and consistent.
Yeah, and Free, we were nice about it. Okay, I was nice about it yesterday in terms of saying, hey, at least Chuba Hubbard didn't get 100 yards, and there hasn't been a running back this season that's gotten 100 yards on the Falcons individually, but collectively we know that that's a little bit of a different case. But I think more importantly, and to Tori's point, and Jarvis's as well, you kind of look across the stat line for the defense, and you kind of sort of don't want to just see 3 quarterback hits, if you will. You don't kind of want to see 0 sacks. That's not something that you feel is going to be sustainable as far as allowing any other quarterback that's kind of worth his ilk to be able to get away with not being on the ground, and for you being able to not pressure to the point where he's getting hit. So yeah, I think we'll kind of land right there where, again, we were nice about it yesterday, but Free, I'll let you rip today on what it is that you see that kept this Panthers team in the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think this game kind of illustrated the issue, and Jarvis and I were talking about this last week, and I know others have talked about it the last couple of weeks. Their third down defense hasn't been very good. They were went into this weekend dead last in the NFL in third down defense, and a big reason is because they have so many third and shorts. Like half of their third downs going into this weekend were third and short, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. And it's just really hard for a defense to be effective when you have those downs and distances. And in this Carolina game, the handful of times the Falcons did get Carolina into a 3rd and long, they consistently were able to get stops. And so I think the solution, if I could offer a solution, if Tori's not willing to go out on a limb and do that, I think the key is you got to get teams into 3rd and long, and the key for that is you have to have more negative plays on those early downs. And I think because of the Falcons' struggles to stop the run in those situations, as well as doing a little bit too much bending and giving up easy yards through the air, has led to opposing offenses to get into these very third and manageable situations, which allow them to possess the ball, to move the ball down the field and get into these scoring opportunities that, presumably a better defense would be able to force more punts and whatnot. And that's going to be a challenge in future weeks because, no offense to Andy Dalton and this Panthers offense, but it's not necessarily an elite unit. And you face, Geno Smith, who's playing good football so far this year. You have Dak Prescott later this season. Obviously you have, some good divisional opponents and whatnot in these next couple of weeks. And so if you can't solve this issue, it's going to be a bigger challenge against those offenses. And so I think the key for the Falcons is you got to get some of these stops on some of these early downs. You saw some of that in this game. I think that you saw Grady Jarrett getting some TFLs on some of those early down runs, and that was a contributing factor to why the Falcons seemingly were able to get a few more 3rd and longs in this game and whatnot. So I think that's really the key for the Falcons. They just kind of have to figure out, okay, how do we get more negative plays in the sense of the offense getting negative plays on 1st and 2nd down? And once they solve that problem, then you'll start to see a lot of these issues with the defense, I think, getting corrected.
Yeah, and I think that, not only Grady Jarrett, I think Ruka Roro, goodness, Roro.
You added an extra row in there.
Yeah, or not enough. But I think, Ruka Roro was a good example of how they need to play up front, from defensive line. Obviously, Grady Jarrett, yeah, he still got it, y'all. I don't know if y'all noticed or not. He still got it. He still can get off. I think that getting off the ball, and then if the offensive line does get into your pass, being able to get off that block quickly and working your hands and being able to and being active in that light. And I saw that it was cool to see that from the rookie. I think David Onyemata he took a couple steps back. I think they were moving him around a little bit too much for my liking in this particular game. That's why you saw some of those gaping holes like Tori mentioned earlier, as far as right up the gut. It was just like, that's just not a good look. So playing the run better will help, them get them in those 3rd and long situations, because you saw that because Carolina had a couple penalties, and you saw what the Falcons were able to do when they did turn around and hand the ball off. James Smith-Williams had a nice TFL as well. So all those guys are guys we talk about using their hands. They're playing the run in that light. And I think everybody else need to come along and do that, because that's the only way. The only way, if this offense continues to score like they are, like you're going to be up to a couple of scores against certain teams, and you'll be able to take advantage of that. But like Aaron mentioned, when you talk about who the type of offenses that are come in here, offenses that can put up some numbers, if you aren't doing what you're supposed to do, that is going to be the big test. You can't have them. You can't let these offenses have a two-way go. You have to get them up off the ground and then make them pass the ball, consistently. And the way you do that is your offense getting you a lead, and also you stopping that run. So if you combine those two things together, I feel like the defense will be in a good situation. But until then, they're gonna have to do some work up front.
Well, we'll talk about the team's identity on offense and defense when we come back. And what's next? This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is also brought to you by Prize Picks, which is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less in at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And here are a couple of cool things about Prize Picks as well. It's the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Texas, and right here in Georgia. And Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live, and Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my pick hits, when your pick hits, you can make money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, it is highly encouraged for you to go and do that, of course, right after the Atlanta Football Party. But again, download that Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your play for your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel and is programmed to bring you the biggest stories daily without all the noise. Locked On Sports Today also brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So free, in a word, if you can get it down to a word, when we look at the fact that we are a third of the way through this Falcon season, what would be one word you'd use to describe the offensive identity of this team through this first 6 weeks?
I'll say opportunistic, because of what we talked about earlier. We're taking advantage of some of the weaknesses of some of these opposing defenses. Last week throwing through the air, this week on the ground. So opportunistic to me is the word I'd probably use.
Got it. And what about you, Tori? One word comes to mind as far as the offensive identity?
I mean, it's not like one word, but just take what's given. To Free's point, they're just doing what needs to be done to win games.
Indeed. What about you, Jarvis? Offensive identity.
Multiple. Like putting people in situations where they can, be able to take advantage. Like I feel like this Bijan Tyler dynamic can be really special. If Zach plays this thing right, this can put this offense in some situations where they're putting up 28, 30 points a game easily.
And what about on the defensive side of the ball? What do you feel would be maybe that one word for their identity through the first 6 weeks? Not everybody at the same time.
Oh man, can I do a phrase like Tori?
Yeah,
I know. I was gonna do bend don't break.
You have to be a phrase for me.
I'm doing phrases. I'm hyphenating everything.
Yes, use your freaking hands. Get off blocks. Yeah, that's it. Get off blocks.
One phrase. Which one is it gonna be?
They need to get off blocks. That's my phrase. They need to get off blocks. That's it. Because, like you said, when teams can come in and do have a two-way go, run the ball, they can pass it, because you're trying to figure out what you want to, which element of the game you want to stop, or which element of the game can hurt you the most. Like that's a hard situation to be in because we're seeing Jimmy Lake starting to bring more pressures, right, from the second level. I was also bringing the nickel in, and sometimes even a Jesse Bates as well. So when you have a defense coordinator trying to figure out, trying to conjure up pressure, we've seen this before, right? We've seen this before. We understand how that can be. You can put your corners in situations you don't want to put them in. So I think that, for this team to be able to get where they need to be or where they say they want to be, and that's a contender, those guys are gonna have to get off those blocks, and they got to get off of them fast.
Yeah, I'll go back to the whole like bend don't break mentality. Like they're doing enough. Like they're keeping the Falcons in the first few weeks. They were what was keeping them in games.
Yeah.
Now in the last couple of weeks, it's been more of this like we're giving up a lot more probably than what you would want, but at the end of the day, they're not scoring enough to outscore what Kirk Cousins and Tyler Allgeier and Bijan Robinson are doing. So I don't know. It's also, to me, it's a tale of two different defenses in the first 3 games versus the last 3 games. And I think I don't know what the difference is. I don't know what that disconnect is, but trying to figure that out as well.
Yeah, for me, we've gone back and forth on this on the postcast with the bend but don't break stuff. So if I was going to use one word, it'd probably be malleable, because that usually means that you can kind of warp it a little bit. But if I'm going to go positive for once, talking about the defense, I'm going to say clutch. They make plays in the fourth quarter when they need to make plays in order to win these football games. And so it isn't always pretty in the first 3 quarters, but in the fourth quarter, they will step up and make the play. And I just have to start making peace with that. I'm like, all right, first 3 quarters is going to be rough. And then the fourth quarter, AJ Terrell is going to get an interception. Jesse Bates is going to make a fumble, forced fumble or something like that to make the play that will allow them to win the game. And so that is the positive side of it, but it's a lot of bending in those first 3 quarters. And so that's where the malleability comes from.
Yeah. And my word for offense would be ascending, because I think that they just keep doing that each and every week. They just keep building and improving and getting better. And I think it's going to keep going in that direction, by the way. And I would say for the defense, adjustments, because for some reason, it does seem like, especially the last couple of weeks, they're having a slower and slower and slower start. And Jimmy Lake must be doing something at halftime to kind of get them all the way together. But all the way together kind of takes until the fourth quarter. But it doesn't matter. Adjustments are adjustments. And if they get you to getting a W, then that's all that matters at the end of the day. And speaking of that, we talked a lot. You heard it in the media. We talked a lot about it on our shows, where we thought the Falcons were going to land as far as a very difficult first 6 games of the season. Some said, hey, if they go 500, it would be a good look, and 4-2 would be a great look. Well, that's where they are. They're at 4-2. So here we are again with them atop the NFC South, 3 straight wins against divisional opponents and staring down another set of gauntlet games. So the next 5, we're talking about hosting the Seahawks, at the Bucs, versus the Cowboys, at the Saints, and at the Broncos. So for you, Aaron, what do you expect this team's record to be in this second wave of games? And how do you see them getting it done again in that second wave to have a winning record?
Well, I figured, they need to be 6-5 going into their bye week in order to be in control of their destiny coming out of the bye week down the home stretch to make the playoffs. And, I had them at like 3-3 at this point in time. And so to me, it's like, okay, like maybe they can get to 7-4 or even better at this point, given that they're now 4-2, at least 1 game ahead of where I thought they would be. And I think a lot of these games coming up are a lot more winnable than maybe they looked earlier in the season. So I think 6-5 is the kind of the bare minimum to sort of still be in control of their destiny. But I think this team has shown enough that you can think, 7-4, maybe even 8-3, going into the bye week. So I think they have they're in a really great spot right now.
Yeah, I was going to say 7-4. I think that's fair. Like, it's not too good, but it's not like too bad. So it's right in the middle, right where I like to be.
Love it.
Yeah, I think 7-4 is doable. Because when you think about the way this offense is going and the deficiencies that your defense has, I feel it's kind of almost like a marriage made in heaven, because good marriages, where the one spouse is strong, the other spouse is, maybe a little bit weakened, so they can combine together and be a good tandem. So I think that's where this defense, the way the offense is ascending from a scoring standpoint, they're going to put hopefully they put the defense in a situation where they can rush the passer more, because teams are going to be behind a couple of scores, right? Because we know the play calling changes once starts to shift when that starts to happen. So hopefully the more the offense ascends, that it's going to help this defense, where we know they're deficient, and give the more opportunity that you have to do something, the more potential you have to get better at it. So, hey, that's the only thing. That's the only hope we have at this moment.
Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Football Party your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons for your second listen, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Atlanta Football Party Dogs Edition.